Okay. I'm taping it. Baruch Hashem, it's heartwarming to see everybody to get out of the cold, to come to learn. The truth is, from what I understand, in Lakewood and all the East Coast, it's much more in the cold right now than where we are. But it's nevertheless very heartwarming that we're able to take our time, that we have our time of quote-unquote not working, and we're able to show Hashem, that's our ratzon always, that we're able to sit and learn. We have to work, but the times where we're able to really come together and learn Torah, it's indicative on the rest of the year that that's really where our heart is and where we want to be. So it's tremendous chizuk, and it's a beautiful thing. And next Monday we're going to have also a continuation, part B of today's shiur given by Rabbi Habusha. Thank you for joining us today, Rabbi Habusha. And it's very important just to give this introduction that the laws of Tzedakah and the laws of Ma'aser Kisafim, although many people think they come together and they're the same, are really two distinctive topics. One that really has almost nothing to do with one another. There's one mitzvah of Tzedakah, which we're going to learn about extensively today. Tzedakah, like it says in the Torah, that one has to give Tzedakah from different Pesukim. And then there's the mitzvah of Ma'aser Kisafim. It's not even clear if it's an obligation, if it's a minhag. We'll hear about that next week. But Ma'aser, just to give a little bit of introduction to make sure we don't mix up the topics, Ma'aser Kisafim is something, a guarantee, a deal between we have and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We give our 10% and Hashem is going to make us rich. It's a deal. It's a deal. It's beyond the mitzvah of Tzedakah. So today we're going to learn about what our obligation of Tzedakah is. And basically, like I said in the cover sheet, I want to cover 4 main topics today. And then there's going to be other ones, topics that come along with it. The first topic is the parameters of Dema Hasro. In other words, the parameters of how much Tzedakah is one obligated to give. It's the most vexing question. It's the question that has the most ramifications to us. Somebody comes to the door. There's organizations in the city. There is Talmud Torah. There's children's education. What do I have to give to Tzedakah? That's number one. That's going to be the most important question, the first topic. Number 2, we're going to discuss, there's 4 people who come. And we know some of them were not so sure always that they're so poor. So who's considered a poor person or not? That's another question. Number 3, we're going to discuss what are the parameters of turning a poor person away. Let's say I don't have money. Can I turn him away or not? And number 4, we're going to discuss a very important subject as well, as when I give a vow to give a tzedakah. Or I was learning today about, let's say you have money in the pushka that the pizza man comes to the door and you don't have any cash on you and he doesn't take credit cards. Can you give him $20 on the pushka and pay it back? So we're going to discuss those questions also. That's vows and stipulations and what can you do with the money of tzedakah. So those are going to be 4 main topics that we're going to discuss today. And Baruch Hashem, we learned the Mekorot already, which is the purpose, not coming just to hear a shiur. It's getting from the source and seeing inside, and that's how we properly obviously understand and get to the root of the matter. And just to mention also, it's the Hilulah of Rabbi Yaakov Abu Chatzera today, and there's beautiful things that people do in the city, Lezecher Nishmat Tzadikim, but there is no more beautiful thing than studying the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'schut, all of the great hashpah, Kiddusha that the Tzaddik gave us. That's the biggest way of celebrating the Hilulah. So with that, let us start. The Gemara in Masechet Ketubot, Daf Samech Zayin, discusses how much is one obligated to give tzedakah. It says the following. Let's open up to page number 2 on our sheets. where I have it underlined. Tanu Rabbanan. Yatom Sheba Lisa. An orphan that is coming to get married. Sochrin lo bayit, we rent him a house. Matzi'an lo mita, we fix him bedding. V'chol keli tashmishu, any other appliances, as we would say. V'achar kach matzi'an lo isho, and then we marry him off. We don't just bring him to a restaurant to marry him off. We have to take care of him. How do we know that? Because it says in the pasuk. I'm going to read the pasuk in full, and we have it on the side, brought down on the side of the Gemara. Ki patoach tiftach yadecha lo ve'abet tabitenu de mahsaro asher yahsar lo. You should give a poor person what he's lacking. It's not enough to say, I just married. I had an obligation to marry him off. I found him a shidduch. I married him off, and that's enough. No, I have to properly give them the support and the different things that come around with getting married. It is not enough to just say, give them the basic minimum. And the Gemara is going to say the following. Tadu Rabbanan. Let's read the Gemara together. It's very important. You have to make him standing. In other words, and the reason why is because Tzedakah, the Rambam says, is learned out from the pasuk v'yachzakta bo, but learned from Ger Toshav, that Tzedakah, it is a common mistake. Tzedakah doesn't mean giving someone money. That's a mistake. And what's the proof? What's the biggest proof? Because what's the highest level of tzedakah? There's the highest level of tzedakah, the Rambam writes two things. Number one is finding a person a job. And number two, lending a person money. Well, lending a person money, why is that the highest form of tzedakah? I'm getting the money back. The answer is, we have a mistake in defining what tzedakah means. Tzedakah doesn't mean giving a person money. That's also tzedakah. Tzedakah means v'yachzakta bo. That's where we learn it from the Torah. You have to help put a person on their feet. Giving him tzedakah is not always the best way of. It's sometimes necessary. There is no other way to do it. But the ideal way is getting a person to be self-sufficient on his feet. And there's beautiful organizations that help people do that. That is the classic case of the Torah, v'yachzakta bo, and that's the highest level. But now we're learning that somebody is not there yet. That they can't pay it back. And we're going to see there's different ways how to get him over the money if he really doesn't want to accept it that way. So Tanu Rabbanan. Tanu Rabbanan. You don't have to make him rich. Even if you have to give him a car, a horse. Or a servant. He took a poor person that was used to a high standard of living. He gave him a sus l'kov. And one time, he didn't find a servant. He felt that it was his obligation to run in front of that horse himself. Unbelievable. In front of that poor person himself. The Gemara continues with different stories, and it as part of the different discussion, I want to skip right before where the lines get wide. Right before that, there was a case where Rava decided to give the poor person a nice fat chicken and old wine. So people look at him and he says, "Why are you?" So they started having complaints. Why is he giving him the top of the line out of our tzedakah funds? They're giving him the top of the line. Amar le atu medidayu ka'achila mirachmana kechilna, from a Kadosh Baruch Hu's bank account. Hashem has unlimited funds. So the Gemara goes on that Dei Mechasro is the fundamental and the most basic obligation that we're obligated to support poor people, is to the amount that they need. And this comes very much into question nowadays, just to define a little bit of this Dei Mechasro before we get into how much we're obligated to give. But how do we define what a person needs? Rav Wagner, which is one of the very, very great poskim nowadays, is Shilot Tshuvot Shevet HaLevi. And he was asked a troubling question. You have a lot of people, and this is a controversial issue. They need to live in Eretz Yisrael. And in order to live in Eretz Yisrael, a lot of them, in order to get married, people will not want to get married to them unless they come with a basic package deal. And part of the package deal is being able to afford an apartment. I've heard this over many times. I don't own an apartment. I'm supposed to support them to get an apartment? So Rav Wosner deals with the question. And he says, well, let's see from the sugya. The sugya says, you have to support a poor person. The amount of money that it takes in order what he's lacking. So says Rav Wosner, sometimes it's a leniency, and sometimes it's a stringency. The leniency that you don't have to give him in order to make him rich. On the other hand, you can't give him the basic minimum. So says Rav Wosner, how do we determine what's that minimum? What's the shvil hazahav? What's the goal line? That it's not making him rich, but it's giving him the basic minimum. Says Rav Wosner, if you're going to give him a basic package deal, this poor orphan, you're going to give him a package deal that after 1 year he's not going to have enough money to support himself. So you're back to square one. Our obligation is to give him a minimum living quarters. That would be the basic obligation, giving him a basic minimum quarters. And he says the following. Those who come from important families and they were used to a higher standard of living. They became orphans and they lost money and they are on the streets right now. And it's our obligation as Jews to support them. So he says, Rav Wosner, Shuv nechnasim begeder ani betovim. This is what the Gemara discusses. A poor person, children of good people, in other words, that are used to a higher level. And therefore, he says, they have to get a dira. Now, they don't have to get it in the prime area. Wherever it's going to be a basic place. Now, you're going to say, okay, so let them go to Gaza. Gaza, you get a fight for $25,000. It has to be a basic living place. It has to be a basic living place where they would be able to live. So, says Rav Wosner, it's all dependent on these people. And I have to tell you that this comes up. My Rabbi, I actually dreamt about him last night. So whenever I want to ask him questions, so then it stays in my mind, and I dream about them. So in Eretz Yisrael, I would always dream about Rabbi Yashiv, even though a lot of times I wouldn't get in. And Rabbi Avad Yosef, many times he agreed with me. Then I woke up, it wasn't true. I don't give up that. I'm not going to give up. Now, my Rabbi, Rabbi Zriel Orbach, is the head of the Vada Tzedakah of Eretz Yisrael. It's a large Tzedakah fund that many millions of dollars pass through those funds. He himself was never zochet to have children, doesn't have many expenses. Obviously, this is Rav Yashiv, his father-in-law, told him that this is what he does, and he doesn't take any money from it, obviously. And he's an extremely trustworthy, reliable person that people just feel very trustworthy, and that's why they appointed him. Because a Gabbai Tzedakah is supposed to be somebody who's extremely has a lot of integrity, and people feel comfortable giving it to them. As a matter of fact, Rabbi Shlomo Miller Shlita told me yesterday that this is one of the sometimes when you have organizations that lo aleinu and they could cause chilul Hashem, that sometimes the people who are sometimes handling the funds, we are not comfortable with them. Chas v'shalom. So he says sometimes it's not as much as an obligation, and sometimes a poor person would come first to give them an obligation. So one of the main things that having in different schools and different shuls is to make sure to have the heads of the organizations who are dealing with the money to day-to-day base. You have to know that the transparency, because otherwise people are going to say that we're not so sure we want to give or not to give. So Baruch Hashem, I think that for the most part the Jewish organizations in Canada and in America, from at least the people that I know and I've seen, you do see a tremendous amount of integrity and mesirut nefesh, which is a wonderful thing. But it's a very, very important condition. So in Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Zriel Orbach was known as that he has to deal every single week with files this big. this big, these files, that each one of them has cases of this orphan, and this happened, this one needs a medical obligation, and he has to decide how much to give to each one. It's a hard job. How is he going to decide? So he told me very much. He told me very often. He says, he sits down and he sees according to what they're used to, and according to how much they previously had, and how much it's going to take to live on a minimum base. And that's how we decide. And that's what Rabbi said. You have to look at the situation of the person. It's a case-by-case basis. It's a case-by-case basis. It's only people who have this knowledge in Gemara that are able to make these decisions. So we have right now. So now that we know the minimum of Dei Mehasro, what would be now? How much am I obligated? Okay, so I know that a poor person comes to me. I have to give him the basic amount that is necessary for him. But what is that? What is that basic amount? What is that basic amount? So the basic amount that a person is obligated to give is in the Gemara in Bava Batra. We're going to have to go a little bit further in page number 4. The Gemara in Bava Batra says the following. Page 4 in the sheets. It's Daf Tet in Bava Batra. Says the following.
If there are people who rent a house, there are people that will rent.
Yes. So if
my mind was clear to purchase him a continent that he should not have stopped forever and ever and ever, why is that a given?
So Rav Wosner says that if it's going to be a situation that this person that we know is never going to be self-sufficient enough to be able to always rent, it's better to buy him an apartment from the beginning. But if we know that after 2 years he's going to be self-sufficient, he's in the middle of taking courses or whatever, he's competent, he's not somebody who is lacking basic needs. In other words, sometimes you have a person in front of you that you know that he's always going to be, he never started off, right? I know people like, they never started off, right? So they're always below. So then he says it's better to buy them from the beginning. So, but he says, you're right. If you know after 2 years they're going to be supporting himself, of course you're not obligated to only get them a zero.
But this concept is new. He's never had it.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
what you're saying.
That's what Rav Wosner addressed. He said that he said that if it's a situation where they're going to be able, why was it new beforehand? Because people usually were able to deal with a certain amount that they were able to start on their own and eventually build up. But if you know that person's always going to be in a rut, what did you gain by giving them a couple of years? And a couple more years, it's going to be down the drain again. Now says Rav Wosner that if nobody's going to marry them off, nobody's going to marry them in their circles, nobody's going to marry them unless they come with a certain dowry. It's our obligation to provide them with that dowry, he said. That's our obligation of Dei Mehasro. That's what the Torah says, Dei Mehasro. Now, but how much is that? How much is our obligation? Because, yes.
Maybe the entire system is off.
You know what? Let me tell you what's on our
What is within the tuba?
What's written in the ketubah? So let's take the elephant out of the room, and I'll tell you very, very, very clearly. When the Torah writes, you have to give tzedakah to someone, that means the Torah said that there is going to be poor people in the world, and there might be systems that there are things that need to be improved. But me, as a personal Jew, when another person comes for funds, I am not sitting there as a judge right now. I'm not supposed to sit there as a judge because this is, by the way, my struggle and your struggle probably every day. When you have people coming and you look at them and say, why should I support? Why should the one to go get a job? Why should I support them? But the Torah says that there are poor people in the world. So there must be, it's like a factual thing, that there are poor people in the world at the end of the day. So, and there are systems that maybe should be modified in order to help that. And there are systems that work and people are trying. But in the meantime, when he comes to me and he needs something, I have to look in the Gemara in Masechet Ketubot in Bava Batra if he falls under that. And if he falls under that, I can't ask any questions, and I ask him, and I have to give according to what the Torah gave. Yes?
So if I sustain him, this guy for 2 years, you take this just 2 years, if I buy him an apartment,
yeah,
and he knows that, it's obvious that he's not going to make his effort to be self-sufficient.
If that's the case, then you're not obligated. So I spoke to Miller about this yesterday. He says, what happens if somebody could go out to work? Listen to this question. Somebody could go out to work. Yeah? Somebody could go out to work. But he says that he figures like this. I'm going to go out to work, I'm going to make 2,000 shekel. Yeah? Make 2,000 shekel. If I go collect, once a year, I make my rounds, I stop off from first Montreal, and then Toronto, and then I go from there to Los Angeles, and then I go to Miami, and then I end off in Brooklyn, and I go to Chicago, and then I go to Baltimore. I'll make 20,000 shekel like that, and then the whole year I won't have to work. I'll do that twice a year even. Says Rabbi Miller, in that type of case, that person is considered like he has money. Because like he has money, he doesn't want to work. You're not obligated to give him tzedakah for that. A person who is trying to take advantage, not because he doesn't have money, but he has enough money, he's able to go out and get a job. He's able, and you know that. But you know what the big problem is? You don't know. We don't know. And that's why we have the most unbelievable Gemara in Masechet Ketubot and Daf Samech Zayin. This is wait, let me just finish this. My favorite Gemara in Daf Samech Zayin Amud Aleph, and it says the following. Samech Chet Amud Aleph. I have it after, I don't have it a page written on it, but it's after page 2. Yeah? Haynu de Amar Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar says, Bo v'nachzik tova l'rama'im. Let us say thank you to the swindlers. She'ilmalehen haynu chotim b'kol yom. Because if it wasn't for them, says the Gemara, we would do avirot every day. In other words, a poor person comes to us, we'll say, okay, is he a swindler or is he really poor? So a lot of times we don't give them, or we don't give them the way we're supposed to. A lot of times we're violating avirot because they really need it. The Gemara says, those swindlers who come once in a while save us from that, because we have a justified claim. Sometimes there are swindlers, so we never know. Therefore the Gemara says, we have to say thank you to the swindlers. What do you say, Joe? Joe Real Estate, you have something to say?
No, I just said, you mentioned the people that come out once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And they collect their I said, that's 99% of the cases.
So we have to say thank you to them.
Every year at the same time.
You know what it is? You have to be a chacham then. And this is going to be our next halakha we're going to discuss. How much to give to the people that come at the door, and how do you evaluate how much to give in each and every person? The reason why is because it's something that we struggle with every day. We want to give properly tzedakah, and we don't know sometimes how, and what's the proper parameters. So I'm going to address this issue first, and I really want to get it clear before we go to the other issues. What about Nadav?
Let's say a person could go out and work, but he'd rather sit and learn.
That's something else. We're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss that also about Hazakat Torah, which is something else. Hazakat Torah is something else totally. Hazakat Torah is something else totally. What do you say?
Why don't the leaders fix it? But we can't judge.
How do you know the leaders aren't working on it?
Well, it ain't fixed.
Because, so, let me ask you something. Is there a nuclear problem in the world?
We're talking about...
No, is there a nuclear problem in the world?
They're not addressing, our leaders aren't addressing that.
No, not our leaders, but there is a nuclear problem in the world, but the leaders of the nuclear haven't resolved the problem yet. Does that mean they're not trying to resolve it? No. Problems are complex. Let me tell you something. Problems are deep and complex, and there's a lot of issues. And it's hard. It's not so simple. So there are efforts that people, now you have to get into the crux of the matter to see what the issues are and to try to solve them. It's not so simple just to solve something overnight. If not, there wouldn't have been a problem. You know, problems sometimes are difficult to fix, and they are trying to get fixed. There is trying, because there is definitely issues that we all agree with that have to be addressed. And let me tell you something. They are trying to be addressed. I know firsthand from different great Torah leaders that I was in their house and I saw them trying to address them. But it's not as simple as we think. The problems are complex and difficult and are dependent upon a lot of different sociological, political, and other factors. Okay, yes?
We're always talking about giving to an individual person coming to the door. But how about giving to an organization? Is there a difference?
Yes, of course. That we're going to get to right now. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue the Gemara in Masechet Bava Batra. How much to give? This is the golden question. How much to give? The last of the underlined lines. Tanya, we learned. Im haya ani hamechazer alav tachim. If it was a poor person that is used to going knocking on the doors, en iskakin lo. We don't have to support him. So the Gemara says, That means we don't have to give him a large amount. We have to give him a small amount. In other words, a person knocking on your door, you're not obligated to give him a large amount, rather a small amount. The Gemara continues and it says the following. A person should not withhold a third of a shekel a year. You're obligated to give a third of a shekel once a year. Every single person, rich or poor, has to give at least a shlishita shekel. You know how much a shlishita shekel is nowadays? Let's say silver is 14 grams, that's $2.50. That's one shekel is $2.50. So shlishita shekel is about 84 cents. So each person in South Israel, every year, is obligated to give at least 84 cents. That's it. We can go home now. Yeah, 84 cents. I think everyone tries to fulfill the basic obligation. I should certainly hope so. If not, our poor people would be in big trouble. However, doesn't end off over here. Sorry. Let's go to the other extreme, the Rambam. The Rambam is in page 8. Page 8 where it's underlined, Halacha Hey. Ba'ani v'sha'al de mehatro. If a poor person came and asked for what's missing, ve'en yada noten maseget, and the who we asked doesn't have enough money, noten lo kefi hasagat yado. You have to give a minimum. V'kama, what's the minimum? Ad chomesh nechatav mitzvah min hamubchar, until a fifth of his belongings is the best. You can't give the best mitzvah. Turn the page. 1/10. Only 5% is not good. So here we have 84 cents, and then somebody has $500,000 in the bank. If you have a stingy eye, what's 5%? $25,000. So an ani comes, right away we went from 84 cents to $25,000. And if you have a ayin tova, $100,000. And middle is 50. So now we're getting into big problems over here.
School shekel is for anybody who comes to you?
No. That goes total.
Anyone who comes to you.
Total is, yeah. And once you gave that, that's it. I mean, you don't have, you gave a fifth of your money. You gave your fifth of your money. No. But then what happens is the Rishon Litzion, Rabbi Mordechai says that, I think it was Mordechai says that, okay, then you have 450,000. So next time that comes to you, you have to give 5% of that.
That's what I say.
So obviously we're in a big bind over here to try to understand what's our obligation over here. So I asked this to my Rabbi. I asked this to Rabbi Israel Rabbi, and he said the following. And this is something that's from the Sugyot. It's obvious. Rabbi Miller told me the same. That the Gemara says that an ani who is used to going around, all you have to give him is a matana muetet, a small amount of money. You don't have to give him a large amount of money. Why? Because he is used to going around to houses. He is going to get his earnings by going to different people. In other words, you're not the only one obligated. You could split the pot. However, if you are the only one who knows that person's situation, and there's nobody else who knows about that situation but you, you're right, you'd be obligated to give more. You'd be obligated to give more up to a fifth if you're the only one who knows the situation. Now, the big question I had, according to that, is what if somebody comes to your door and he tells me, Mordechai, I have this and this issue, and I don't want anybody to know about it. Can you help me out? So now I have to foot his bill, thousands of dollars. Why? Because he doesn't want anybody to know about it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Is he allowed to do that? Is he allowed to ask that from me? So over here, there's a very, very good book on Tzedakah, written actually from a native Torontonian, Rabbi Shimon Taub. He's the son of the Rabbi of the Bayit, or the former Rabbi of the Bayit, and he brings down this question. Excellent sefer. He brings down this question, and he says that some poskim say that he's not obligated to go around and tell other people about his tsar. He only wants to come to you you have to help him foot the bill according to your mitzvah tzedakah. Again, the poskim I spoke to, namely Rav Miller and Rav Zerah, did not say that. Says that he has no right to say, you foot the bill. According to halacha, if that poor person comes to you and he wants you to foot the whole bill, you're saying, I'm sorry, there are other people in the world. In other words, the only practical application that comes out, according to this, about having to give a 50 of your money is that if you're two Jews in this country or in your city and there's no other Jews. Now what happens if you're actually two Jews in the city? Nowadays there's transportation that they go from city to city. It's not a problem. So you're not obligated anymore. So it comes out that fifth of the Rambam is not really practically applicable nowadays because everybody, the onus, the responsibility is upon everyone. Just how much do you give? That already is not clear. How much are you supposed to give? The Rambam says, you have to give him something that will make the ani happy. Now, how much is going to make the ani happy? If you're going to give him, if he decides that he wants $20, otherwise he's going to go away, you're not obligated to do that. You have to give something that's normal, that's not a bizayon. So I would think 25 cents is for most aniyim, is a bizayon. That's what I would think. $1, if an ani comes with $1, you give him $1, he throws it back in your face, you're not obligated to give more. You're not obligated to give more. And if he did that, it's his problem, it's not yours. The Brisker Rav said, what's an evyon in the Torah? An evyon means somebody who comes with a certain amount of hachna'ah, a certain amount of being humble. And evyon is going to come after, he's going to be arrogant, he's going to say, I want more. It's a sign that he's not an evyon, says the Brisker Rav. And he wouldn't give him more. Brisker Rav, anytime an evyon would come, the Brisker Rav was very machmir to give every single poor person because he didn't want to violate, as we're going to see later on, the halacha. He didn't want to violate the halacha of not turning away a poor person. But if that poor person would insist and start being mechutzav, the Brisker Rav would say, I'm sorry, you're not an evyon for me. I don't have to give more. And that is something to keep in mind, that if a person doesn't have change, well, we're going to see that later on, but if a person has money and he gave the money, but the evyon insists for more, according to halacha, you're not obligated to give more. And you don't have to. And you don't have to feel bad the rest of your day doing that. Because in a way it's called exploiting. There are other ways of exploiting as well. Sometimes you get in the mail these things that if you give tzedakah, you'll be able to fly without wings, and if you want a shidduch for this and this, we guarantee it to you, and this rabbi will pray for you. That's nice. That's very nice marketing tool, but that doesn't make you don't have to. If you have to know what your obligation to tzedakah is, to give every single person that comes, to give him an amount, and to split up your tzedakah dollars. Is to places that affect on a more global scale people. My father-in-law was asked Rav Scheinberg Shlita exactly how much to give to each place. He says to institutions that teach Torah and to help the communities. That's where you give your main tzedakah dollars. To the people that come to the door, you give them a little bit. That's what the Shulchan Aruch writes. Let's see the Shulchan Aruch together. The Shulchan Aruch in. Where's the Shulchan Aruch? The Shulchan Aruch is 14? Yes.
I just wanted to know, the Rambam that you quote, the Shulchan Aruch is pretty much a Rambam. Yes.
What page are you on?
14.
Come on, then he brings the Rambam.
It seems that maybe the Shulchan Aruch is not
I never learned that. I never learned that it was dependent. The Rambam says you're obligated to give. It says not you're obligated. It says it's a mitzvah min hamubchar to give them mehasro. Now the Birkei Yosef and the Chofetz Chaim, they all ask the stira because the Rambam in Pirush HaMishnayot in Pe'ah says that you're obligated to give a chomesh. So they say it depends if the ani is asking or not asking. But that's once the ani is asking. But when the ani is not asking, you have to give Dei Mechasro. He doesn't say up to how much. He doesn't talk about it.
יש לו שתי תעודות.
כמה נותנים לעני, זה מה שיחסר לו.
Where did he say שתי סעודות? Where did he say שתי סעודות?
Then the Shach brings the Bach. Bach כתב, וגם היחיד מחויב ליתן לו כל די מחסורו, עם ידו משגת. And then, וכך כתב הרמב"ם, he brings the Rambam that we quoted. So I wasn't sure. I was in Safek. Maybe that the Shulchan Aruch is not being portrayed like that.
So I'll tell you, the Beit Yosef doesn't mention it. The Beit Yosef doesn't mention that there would be a stira. I didn't understand that there was any difference of opinion whatsoever, because the Rambam is talking about what's your maximum to give. And until you reach that maximum, how much are you obligated to give? Until Dei Mechasro. So I didn't understand that. But Prosper is saying that you're obligated to give 2 seudot and not more. That's in how much if he needs to eat. But let's say he doesn't need to eat. Let's say he needs an operation. You're going to give him 2 falafels. That's not going to help for the operation. That's why. In other words, that's why I think that you have to know up to a fifth. If he needs more than that, you're not obligated to give more. But let's say he needs an operation and that costs less than your fifth money. Maybe you would be obligated. And once again, we said that practically speaking, since the whole community takes upon themselves the responsibility, you wouldn't be obligated to. Okay, so the Shulchan Aruch also explains that an individual matana, all you have to give them is matana mueted. I thought I photocopied the Shulchan Aruch, and I don't know. On page 7. Shulchan Aruch on page 7. Thank you. אני המחזר על הפתחים אין נותנים לו מהקופה מתנה מרובה אלא מתנה מועטת. A poor person, all you have to give him from the kupa is something small. That's the halakha. And the question, I spoke about this in Friday night. We have a shiur halakha Friday nights over here at the Kollel, and I spoke about this about a month and a half ago with the unfortunate situation of a Talmud Torah in Toronto that had to close because of lack of funds. We discussed what's our obligation of supporting Torah schools. So the Gemara in Masechet Bava Batra, Chaf Aleph, says there was a takana of Yehoshua ben Gamla. Yizacher latov, it says in the Gemara, that Yehoshua ben Gamla made sure to institute as a tzarkei ha'ir, as one of the necessities of the city, to have Talmudei Torah. Tzarkei ha'ir. Oh, I didn't get into that yet. Okay. Rabbi will hear that comment later. Now, what's going on? In other words, what's going on? That you have certain things in the city besides tzedakah, tzarkei ha'ir. The Rambam says that a city without a Talmud Torah is a city that you should run away from. A city that doesn't have basic necessities of a mikveh, of a yeshiva, of a Talmud Torah, of kollels. This is a city that is missing basic functionality. Basic functionality. And this is that a city. The Rambam says a person shouldn't live in such a city that doesn't have the basic functions. So that obviously is the highest level of tzedakah. There's one level that's higher, which is pikuach nefesh. There's pikuach nefesh. A person needs an operation. In other words, that's the highest level. Then already we also have pidyon shivuim. But after that, it's the necessities of the city. And many of the cases when we're supporting Torah. And a lot of times when we're giving towards the school, why am I going to give to the school? Mr. So-and-so makes a couple $1 million a year. I'm supposed to support his child. Of course I'm not giving towards that child. They get full tuition. We're giving towards the parents that don't have money to send for Talmud Torah and that they need scholarship. That's where our money, when we give money to the schools, is going to. That is obvious. No school that is going to have only people like the full tuition is still going to go around for tzedakah. It's obviously that's not the situation we're discussing. That's not the situation we're discussing. Yes.
And the problem with these institutions, a lot of times these institutions have their head offices at Bay and Bloor, which is like $100 a square foot just for rent.
You remind me of the story of Rav Chaim Volozhin. Rav Chaim.
With the yeshiva.
Okay, tell over the story because not everyone knows it.
Someone came to him and he said he wants to give tzedakah, but he wants us to go to the actual luring, to actual books, and he doesn't want, and the driver was driving on a fancy carriage, and he doesn't want us to go to that, and he said, whatever your kavanah is, that's where it's
like Bezalel. Well, your kavanah is that's what it's going to go to. But that they have their offices in Bay and Bloor is one of two options. Either they're not trustworthy, and therefore you're right. I wouldn't say you have to give it to them.
Or they need those offices.
Either they need those offices to make more money. In order to make money, you have to spend money. So that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. You can't come and say, why does our organization on Bay and Bloor? It could be they need it on Bay and Bloor. I don't know why Bay and Bloor is so good. Maybe I thought that Bathurst is better, but I'm not. I'm not.
The voices, of course, it's the educational voices. The voices you're talking about don't have options on Bay and Bloor.
They don't. Yeah.
No, I know, I understand.
He's just giving us a hypothetical. We're trying to get to the halacha. Okay. So, yes. Yes.
Put it out. But let's say it seems there's so many aniyim that even if it would be split to the tzibur, it wouldn't be enough unless everyone gives a fifth. First of all,
Right. So I spoke actually that with Miller as well. And if a person is able to go to every single place, and not be able to collect his fifth, that doesn't make too much sense. That doesn't make too much sense. In other words, if a person, you're right, if a person needs a tremendous amount of money, i.e. an operation or something, you're right. Then in that case, they do go to individuals and they ask for it. But you're obligated just as much as the other person is obligated. You're obligated as much as the other person is obligated. You're not obligated each one to give a fifth. Everyone splits it in their pot. And if you split everyone's pot together, you're not going to come out giving a fifth. This fifth is not applicable nowadays. That's what comes out. That's what the fifth is not applicable nowadays. And that's why we see people are not giving away a fifth of their money. Ma'aser is something else. Ma'aser we're going to hear about next week. It's practical application ramifications. Today I'm speaking about tzedakah and how much you're supposed to give ani when they come to the door. So far we said an ani who comes to the door, you don't have to give him a large amount, an amount that would make him feel bekavod. If it's institutions, first obviously of your city, that's the first priority. If it's institutions in Eretz Yisrael, they come before institutions from outside of other cities. Yerushalayim is even more than that. Then we go into obviously relatives have a bigger kadima, and there's a whole list of Talmid Chacham as more kadima, of somebody who's not Talmid Chacham. There's a whole list that the Rambam discusses who goes before the other. Page number 14. Page number 15, I'm sorry. We write the orders as follows. Number 1, any situation of pikuach nefesh. Number 2, to study the support of Torah. This is from the Shulchan Aruch. Number 3, to pay for medical bills of the poor. Number 4, the building or maintenance of a community shul. And then number 5, all other needs of the poor, facilitating marriage of orphan girls, takes precedence here, etc. That are the kadimot. There is even more detailed kadimot. If it's a king, a kohen gadol, Mishnah and Horayot discusses a sgan kohen, rosh hamishmat. Obviously those things are not applicable nowadays. There are even more detailed, but for our purposes, that's where the orders of the priorities run. Okay. When a poor person comes to the door, am I allowed to turn him away? I don't want to give him money. As I mentioned to certain people I was discussing it, I have a tuni in my pocket, okay, and I'm a shacharit, and I always have to try to have a tuni in my pocket because I sometimes want to go to the bakery before I go to work to buy myself something to eat. That way I don't have to stay the whole day hungry. So, and then a poor person comes to me. Do I give him my money or not? Or that's a case where I know I have to buy breakfast. How about if I always have to have change in my pocket because I never know, maybe my wife's going to ask me to go pick up something in a very difficult parking area and I'm going to need parking for the meter and I'm always going to need this money. Do I have to give it away or not? So the Rambam tells us the following. The Rambam tells us in page 9, the Rambam says on the second column, you are not allowed to turn away a poor person who acts empty-handed. Even if you give him a little dried fig. It's also good. You shouldn't let a poor person go with nothing. That is the obligation, that you shouldn't let a poor person go around empty-handed. Now, this is once again, I come home, and I find in my mailbox 10 to 12 letters of tzedakah. Is that considered like a poor person knocking on my door that I'm obligated to sit down and put a couple of dollars in each one of them and send them out? That takes not only money, but it takes time. Am I obligated to do that? Or Mishulachim, very good, Rabbi Bezalel. Mishulachim come the same hour. Sometimes they go around. Or they come by week, or they come by month. How do we determine if each time they come, am I going to violate the Rambam if I don't give them something? This is already not so much an extra measure. The Rambam says it's asur to send away a poor person empty-handed. It's asur to send a poor person away empty-handed. So first let's discuss the Tzedakah letters. Tzedakah letters, the Be'er Moshe, and the Be'er Moshe was the Debrecina Rav. You ever the Be'er Moshe Many?
Yeah.
He lent me the Be'er Moshe once. I needed it. And he says the following. I looked at it late last night. That tzedakah letters are just writing. They're not considered like the person is asking you. But he says, let's say you have a very important Rav signs on the letter. So he wants to be Mehadesh. He wants to say a Chidush, the Be'er Moshe, that a signed letter of a Rav is like the Rav is standing in front of you. It's like the Rav is standing in front of you, and it's like he's telling you, give to this guy money. And therefore you have to give on letters. So what happened was is that a while ago, I wrote this in one of the newsletters of the kollel I was in beforehand, and we sent it out, and I got a phone call right away the next day from a very chashuv posek. His name is Rav Nachum Sauer. He has a son over here, the Rabbi, and he called me and he said, Mordechai, how'd you do that? I said, the Be'er Moshe. He brings down the Be'er Moshe as well. He says, don't you know that Rabbi Yashiv and Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach don't hold this way? They didn't know. There's a sefer that I still can't find till today called Be'orach Tzedakah. And in that sefer, I can't even find it, they write that letters are not considered like this. You are not obligated to give letters. So I didn't see it inside, but I also spoke to Rabbi Miller. He also said, obviously, letters are not considered like the guy standing in front of you. You would have no obligation to give whatsoever for a letter that a person is sending you a letter. It's not as the poor person is in front of you. Not only that, Rav Chaim Kanievsky has an amazing sefer on the halachot of tzedakah. The truth is that on leap years, it's always good for the Jews because there's always an extra month, and Rav Chaim Kanievsky on a leap year writes a sefer. The rest of the year he's busy finishing Kol HaTorah Kula. But whenever you have an Adar, an extra Adar, he has a time that he's able to write Svarim. So this is one of the Svarim that he wrote, called Derech Emunah. Derech Emunah, he writes like this. You are not going to violate the prohibition of turning away a poor person if that poor person is not coming himself, rather it's a shaliach. If it's a messenger that's coming, you're not obligated to give him. So therefore, says the Rav Chaim Kanievsky, whenever you have somebody in front of you, you have a sfikah. You have two doubts. In halacha, two doubts are permitted. One doubt is the person really poor or not. Number two, maybe he's just a gabbai tzedakah. So therefore, you're not going to violate the al tashiv dach nechlem if you don't give him. However, if you know that he's the poor person himself collecting, he tells you, or you see from his letter, you know he's the poor person himself and he's asking you, you only have one safek. Since you only have one safek, whether he's really considered poor or not, which was your question, you really don't know if he's poor or not, you should give him. You don't have to give him $5 or $10 if you don't feel comfortable. That's up to your level of discretion, how much to give the poor person. But at least something. Especially, it cultivates in a person the midat harachmanut. To give cultivates the midat harachmanut. The Rabbi Akiva said it was always better to give a lot of little amounts than one big time amount. Let's say to one poor person give him $20, and the rest of the poor people say, sorry, I gave up. It's better not to do this. It's better to save little dollars and give them out slowly, because it also cultivates your giving. Amidat Rahmanut. You know, there's an author from Kelm said that why is it that you find that Tov LaRofim shebegehinom? Why is it that the best of doctors go to Gehinnom? Why do the doctors go to Gehinnom? He said, a person is always drawn according to his physical actions, not according to the reason that he's doing it. We're human beings. So a doctor, although he has the purest intentions, he wants to heal, but he's inflicting pain constantly. So he gets immune to inflicting pain. So that's where a person is going to go towards. Same thing too, that's why it says, Shno et harabanut. You should hate being a Rav. Why? Why? The Mishnah says that. You should hate being a Rav. Why? Because the Rabbi walks in, he gets kavod, and he gets this and that. So he's drawn after kavod, the Rabbi. Even though he has lofty intentions, l'shem shamayim, but there's repercussions to it. He's always going to be drawn towards kavod. Therefore, one of the Talmidim of the school of Kelm, his name is Mendel Kaplan. He was a Rosh Yeshiva in Philadelphia Yeshiva, and he said he was a Rebbe in Philadelphia, and he said that the worst job in a yeshiva is for a person to be a veker. You know what a veker means? It's Arabic. It means waking up people in the morning. You go waking up people in the morning. There's a job of one yeshiva bacher. He goes around waking up people in the morning. This is the worst job. Why? Because even though I'm waking people up from shacharit, I'm putting a hose in their bed. I'm doing great things. I'm getting them for shacharit. You're right. Your intentions maybe are there, but your actions is depriving people from sleep. It's going to affect you subconsciously, but it's going to affect you. It's going to affect you, and therefore tzedakah in the opposite way. You might say, I don't know if this person is good. I'm going to educate him that he's going out to get a job. But at the end of the day, we do that. We're going to pull after our natural human instincts, which is not giving. But if we keep on giving a person, so we cultivate in our nefesh the midah of always giving, always being behesed. Always being behesed. So that's something that's important to remember regarding the mitzvah of al tashiv ladal nichlam.
How do you think around with the shvachim when the drivers are
the drivers? We have to thank the drivers.
Don't push it.
You think we shouldn't thank them? Okay. Oh yeah, I think I did.
I thought you did the drivers also on Eid.
No, I said that it's up to your discretion because of that. Because you're right, since they're taking a lot, you're right. But since the only way of this poor person, how else do you want him to take money if it wasn't for a driver? He doesn't know where to go. So you're right, the drivers are taking a big cut. But how can people volunteer? You know what? These are all valid questions. And as I mentioned, it could be that you're right. But when he comes to you, we're not asking. The obligation is not that you give him a $500 check. That's not your obligation. And the truth is, if somebody comes and you know that his driver is taking 70% or whatever, 60 or 50%, and he himself you're not exactly convinced about his story, you gave him $500, you're the one to blame. You're the one to blame, not him. He's just doing what he's supposed to do. But you're the one to blame. In other words, you have to give smart. You have to give and give and give. You just have to know how to give. That's all. Okay. We spoke about the parameters of how much to give. We spoke about who is considered an ani. We spoke about al tashiv ladal nichlam. We're already a little bit over our time, but I wanted to discuss just for a brief amount. Anybody who has to leave already, I know we said at 12 o'clock, we try to wrap up. Anybody who has to leave, I will not get insulted at all if they have to leave the room. But the last topic that I wanted to discuss, because this comes up very often, is what's to do with tzedakah money. The pushkas that we discussed. Let's say I have in my house a pushka. I have in my house a tzedakah box that there's money inside, and I need to take from that money sometimes because I'm short on cash, and I want to return it back to the pushka box. I want to borrow it in the meantime. And let's say we have some treasurers of shuls. They said that they have some money in their possession, and they want to know that sometimes they need it for another use, and then eventually to return it. What is allowed, what's not allowed? Vows of tzedakah. So with this, the Gemara in Masechet Erochin tells us like this, that before a person gives the money over to the Gabbai Tzedakah, he has money. Before he gives it over to the Gabbai Tzedakah, he's allowed to borrow from that money, and he's allowed to give it to another Tzedakah.
Even the machshava to give it to certain institutions.
If it's Lidvar Mitzvah, no. If it was for a specific institution, not. I'm just saying, he designated money for tzedakah. You're right, I'm sorry. Yachol lishnota le'acher. Let me just take out the halacha. Yachol lishnoto ben levato le'atzmo levato lechavero v'yivrach et achav. No, I'm sorry. Lishnoto was something that when he didn't designate it. Thank you. When somebody did not give the money yet, he is allowed to borrow from it, or himself, or give it to somebody else to borrow and get the money back. Once he gave it to the Gabbai Tzedakah is not allowed to borrow. That's the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch tells us. Ha'omer sel azul tzedakah shomer harei alai tzedakah v'frisho ad shelo ba liyad hagabay. If it didn't come to the gabay's hand, yachol lishnoto. He could change the function. Ben ilvato le'atzmo ben ilvato lechaviro. As long as he's going to get it back, that is. He's allowed to borrow it or borrow money from it. V'yifrach et tachtav. But once he took that money, once he gave it to the gabay, he can't do anything about it anymore. What's the halacha of a pushka box? What's the halacha of a tzedakah box? It is as if he gave it to the gabay tzedakah. Let's say he has a nice tzedakah box. It says Beit Yaakov. Yeah, it's a nice tzedakah box. He puts in the money tzedakah box, and then he has a knock on the door. He has somebody who comes and he needs money. He needs money, so you want to give it to him, and you'll put back $20 later. Are you allowed to do that or not? So there's a Shalot Uchuvot Maharsham. The Maharsham says that a tzedakah box is as if you gave it to the gabay tzedakah, and you're not allowed to take out and borrow money from there. Maharsham says that. Rav Chaim Kanievsky brings this, and this is how he's perfect halacha. And this is sometimes a person is stuck because I know I used to sometimes borrow from someone and put it back. So Rav Chaim Kanievsky says, however, the proper thing to do is that you can make a condition, and from now on you should make this condition. You make it once and it works. You say from now on any money that I'm giving in any pushka is not going to be designated to the Beis Yaakov or to whoever else until it gets there. That way you save yourself from all different types of questions. Not only that, a common question that also comes up is shacharit time. When people come and collecting money. You look at the person from far out, you're standing here and say, I want to give him money. A machshava. Is a thought to give tzedakah like a neder or not? Now, I want to tell you one of the most unbelievable halachot. We know that nidarim, that chalomot don't play a big ramifications halacha. Chalomot, dreams, we're not mityaches, we don't give big importance to dreams. But this is one place, I think it's the only place that I know in the Shulchan Aruch that gives halachic importance to dreams. Hanoder b'chalom, you're dreaming that you gave $100. Ve'eno klum, it's nothing. Ve'eno tzarich she'ela. Ve'yesh omrim, and some say, sheyatiru lo asara diyodea lemikri. He should do a hatara nedarim in front of 10 people that know how to read. Ve'yatiru lo becharata. Ve'yesh lachush ledivreim. Says the Shulchan Aruch, you should be choshesh for their words. That means the Shulchan Aruch brings two opinions, and he says you should be machmir. Rabbi Yashin says this is halakha. Somebody who dreams clearly about giving money, he's in a serious trouble about nidarim. Unbelievable halakha. I still don't understand it completely. What? What's the charata? I should have went to sleep. So comes along the. So the halakha is that if a dream already has ramification, how about if I just thought? Thinking should also have that ramification. So interestingly, the Shulchan Aruch says no. You just thought about giving something that's not a vow yet until you decided to speak out or to give to that person that you're going to give him. But if you did a ma'aseh, that means you took out the money in your pocket ready to give him and he went away, it's a problem. It's a problem. Therefore, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said this many, many times, that a person has to be careful. When he sees people in shul that he's about to give them, he should always have the condition in mind. And he should say the condition clearly. I am not giving the money categorically to tzedakah until it gets to that person's hand. Because we're always going to have problems of nidarim and chas v'shalom that person. Now, if that person went away, I can't find him, I have to give it to another tzedakah. There are certain leniencies that it's not until like I violated the tzedakah vow. But lechatechila, a person should make those conditions by the pushka bag, by tzedakah bag, or by any other obligation. Now, aliyot that a person buys in shul, those are vows. Those are nidarim. He has to keep that neder. Now, let's say he vowed a tremendous amount of money. That person needs hatarat nidarim if they can't pay it. And otherwise, it's a serious question. Yes.
To ask a little before about the night that you're doing the tzedakah.
Yes.
Is that like when you take from it, are you borrowing or can you give to another organization?
No. If you made a tonight, it matters what you're tonight. If you said a tonight, I'm only using this box as a box. It's not going at all to Beit Yaakov. It's labeled. I'm just borrowing the box. It would seem to me, pashut, that I'm able to change the designation. Or does that make sense? That I'm able to take it and give it to somewhere else because I didn't give it yet. I said specifically I'm not. The whole issue is their box. Yeah.
I would agree with the unlabeled box that people
If it's a labeled box, I think everyone understands that you're planning on giving them whatever is left over, whatever you feel you're giving them. Of course, you're just using their box to give the whole box to another organization to rip off the tab. I'm not speaking about. But you have a couple of dollars in there that you use this box principally that you're going to sometimes give to other places. I think that everybody would agree that's not an issue.